Welcome to Season 4 of UX Banter, your portal to insightful conversations with design illuminaries. We are back with even more engaging discussions with design leaders, delving into their experiences and inspirations. Get ready for fresh insights as we explore the latest trends and challenges in the industry. With me, your host, Dushyant Kanungo.
This podcast is presented by Galaxy UX Studio and powered by Galaxy Weblinks, an Inc. 5000 organization.
Hey everyone, welcome to the new episode of the UX Banter podcast. I'm your guest, Dushyant Kanungo, once again with an amazing person and professional in the industry. Our guest today is a design maven with over 16 years of experience crafting seamless digital experiences for a range of industries. From pioneering startups to public sector collaborations, her portfolio gleams with diverse experiences. She plays a vital role in ideation sessions, operational tool development, and hands on digital product creation. What truly sets her apart is her unwavering belief in power of research to uncover user desire. Please welcome the director, head of design and UX at Ledn, Silvia Hernández.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you.
And welcome to the show. And I was really excited to talk to you because I believe that we share some sort of connection with the past agencies or companies that we work for and the background and everything. So, like me, you are also, following the design industry by crafting a way which with multiple countries and places and people and all that. How's the journey? What if somebody wants to become you? What sort of inspiration they can actually take from that path? And if you can tell us about how you became the professional you are today, that would be a great starting point.
Perfect, sure. So I started my career as an industrial designer, actually. I studied industrial design in Barcelona. I'm originally from Spain, from the Canary Islands, actually. And I studied that, but at that time, it wasn't that easy to get a job in that space. And tech was booming. I was really interested in technology and all of that. So I jumped into it. And I worked there for a few different places, mostly startups and small companies. Then I lived in the UK, though I know you were there for a while as well. And there I worked for many different companies as well. I ended up working for the public sector that I loved. And now I live and work in Toronto, Canada. I have been here for 6 years now. And lately I have been specializing in finance.
So while you're working in the financial sector, how are you, finding it different from anything else that you've done in the past?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I think that we share certain things, stories in this field. So I started in finance working for a very big company here in Canada, and now I work for a very small startup. And I feel that there are certain things that are still the same. Like legal is very big. You have to be really careful with what you say and how you say it. When I was for this big organization, like it's very, very big. So yeah, there are a lot of processes and you have to be able to navigate all of that. So when you start on your career as a designer, you think about designing and the craft, but in certain corporations, it becomes more like managing the stakeholders and like all that is behind the design itself. So it was really, really interesting to see that.
What is the primary difference that you see while working in the finance sector for maybe a startup and an enterprise? There could be a bunch of things that you can actually do easily at one place and difficult at the other.
Yeah, 100%. So, well, big companies in there, you have more resources. But in startups, what I really enjoy, I'm at a startup right now, and what I really like there is that it's so much easier to ship things. So when I was at this big org, that was the part that wasn't that easy. Like everything has a very process behind it. There is a lot of legacy in the tools and in the systems. So it's really hard to build something new. Whereas now everything is very, very quick. You work really closely with everyone. You have like the legal person sitting next to you, so you don't have to go through a lot of processes and people to get things done. So I really enjoy the small corporations.
Amazing. I agree with you on those points, but there is one more difference that I would like to hear from you. So you started your career in Spain, you worked there, and then you worked in London, and you work for the government of UK, just giving another big website that you were a part
Mhm.
of. Mediation is another thing that you worked with. So combined together now in Canada or America, in the three different countries that you have actually sit down in a room full of people with stakeholders and whoever was there to work, what cultural differences that you can point out there could be
Yeah.
amongst the people that you dealt with?
Yeah. So, well, when I when I arrived to London, that was really interesting because I had never been like living for, well, not living but working for like in a different country with people from different cultures. So it was very shocking that for me it was really hard to understand what people meant when they were saying things. So we are much more direct and we say things in the way we think them, sort of. So in the UK it was very, very different. So it was really hard like many times to understand what people really was trying to say, to tell you. So that was really fun. And when I moved to Canada, it's a like extremely diverse well, country and city here in Toronto. So what I really enjoy is that you have people from many cultures working together, but at the same time, you need to understand all the small nuances of like the people that you are communicating and working with. So it can be really challenging, but also like very rich. You get a lot from it and learn a lot from these different cultures. And yeah, I'm really passionate about that now and trying to understand like if this person is saying this way, why is that? What do they really mean when they're trying to do this? So it's really fun to get to
It
understand that
must
part.
have been, because I do understand. I personally worked with Spaniards in one of my previous jobs in UK, where like half of the team was from Spain, and even I was one of the person who was not a native Brit. And combining together when we were working out, I think there were certain catchphrases which were quite staple when we were translating things. You could just always imagine that, what sort of direct conversation is going to pop up from somebody from Spain, but at the same time, the laid back attitude that was coming in from Brits. So it was, some sort of a puzzle. You go there, and
Yeah.
even in the group discussion or communication, it was always the challenge of getting to figure
Yeah.
out that are people fighting or are they just being polite to one another?
Yeah, that part is really fun.
It was. And I think it is one of the things which were shocking for people that I was working in other positions in UK as well, where I was, they had to tell everybody who was joining after me into the team that, there is just a brief we would like to tell you about this guy. Sometimes he can be very direct, don't take it otherwise.
Yeah.
And that was my introduction. And
Wow.
later I didn't realize that how direct I could be. And then I meet a bunch of people from Spain and realize that, you know what, this is where the entire cultural clashes that may happen, and people sometimes do misunderstand one another. Even I ran
Yeah.
into a lot of problems at my university with the fellow classmates, because I didn't realize that just for asking for something, you can just say, "Give me this and please," and and
Yeah.
you have to form the entire sentence with
All
like
the small talk.
and then they would understand that you could be in an emergency or in a hurry. And so there is a different annotations about friendship as well, that
Mhm.
with you are with European friends, you have to be a certain way. When you are with British friends, it's a bit different. When you're in Indian friends, it is completely a different scenario. So I can imagine that work culture wise, it is always going to be a train wreck.
Yeah. Yeah, I
um,
do that, something similar to your introduction. I do that with some people sometimes, like when I'm going to be working with them for a while and I see that, yeah, like they put certain faces, I'm like, well, yeah, so this is my background. I usually do things this way so they understand like why I'm so blunt sometimes. So yeah, that's also useful.
I think it is a great insight to have. And I think any
Mhm.
designer who always goes there, sometimes you have to have a lot of patience while you are dealing with the client requirement.
Mm.
And because they are coming in from all sorts of backgrounds, it's not just about one country or a place. But even in a bigger country like United States, you can see the cultural differences are very stark. Somebody from Texas would be completely different from a person from California or New York or Florida and Midwest. And it's just the bouquet of variety that you actually
Yeah.
deal with. And I think from the user experiences perspective, understanding people and making sure that you do not upset anybody? I mean, while you're actually not upsetting, at least the client is always becomes one of the things that you do need to manage the expectations. You need
Yeah.
to manage the way you are communicating things about one solution or the other that you are actually proposing. So, uh, serious talk aside, let me ask you some fun questions with my deck
Sure. Nice.
cards, which are called UX banter cards, and this is called rapid fire.
Let's
All
go for
right.
it.
So, are you ready?
Yeah.
So, one question which is not here: are you a Monday person?
Ooh, I am not. I am
Okay.
not.
I mean, I maybe in quite some time I would like to think so, but I'm not ready for it yet. But I'm not a Friday person either, so I don't know. Okay. Sunrise or sunsets?
Ooh, I love both, but it's more likely that I will be awake during sunset. So yeah, sunsets. I really like the changes of light. It's amazing. So I like
Yeah,
both,
I
but
like
sunsets.
sunrises too, but the fact is that because of all the calls that I, have to take care from India, I generally cannot just get up early in the morning. So that's that. So the next,
Sunsets in Toronto are very beautiful as well.
oh, they are in India as well.
Yeah.
So I believe,
Right.
yeah, sunsets are always beautiful if it is not cloudy. And I imagine that they must be beautiful in Europe if it wasn't raining all the time in UK.
Yeah.
So if you were a superhero, what would your power be?
Ooh, I would love to be able to teletransport myself, especially like having my family back in Spain and friends all over. I would love to, yeah, to be able to appear and disappear in different places, so I don't have to take planes as well.
Or
I would
visa?
love that. Or visa, yeah. Well, yeah, that's another one. Yes. Yeah.
I think that's the most fun superpower to have. I watched the movie Jumper, and I really like the entire concept. I mean, this is the same thing that the people are able to do, but I think having breakfast maybe somewhere in France
Yes.
or maybe in London, having a full proper English breakfast, and then you can just have a reservation somewhere, at the top of Burj Khalifa in Dubai is,
Yeah.
something to be had. All right, books or movies?
Movies. Movies. I love books, but I really like movies.
Your
I
favorite
actually
film?
My favorite film. Oh, it's I don't know the name in English. It is this one with Jim Carrey where he doesn't act as himself.
The
Uh,
Mask?
no,
Okay.
it's not a funny one. It's like a drama one.
Ah,
Oh, I don't remember.
so what is the plot of it?
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless
Ah,
Mind. Is that
with
Jim Carrey?
yeah, it's a beautiful film and it's a science fiction actually. And I think the way that film works out is quite mind-bending. So yeah, perfect one. All right. Next one, your favorite mobile phone app.
Ooh, Google Maps, of course. I use it all the time, and yeah, for my superpower, that will be really helpful as well.
Just focus on the phone and be there,
Yeah, take me
with the
there.
street view on, and you can see where you are landing.
Yeah.
Uh,
What about yours?
wow. I asked this question to everybody, but I don't know that if I can, pinpoint one. But yes, I think Google Maps and Earth are some things that actually, I actually bought my first smartphone because I was in UK at that time in 2010, and I was still using a feature phone despite everybody was on the iPhone or the smartphones. And in India, you could ask anybody that where the directions are by just stopping at the corner shop, which
Oh
are
well.
everywhere. And we never needed navigation maps like that. So once I got to UK, I had to get an iPhone just because I could see maps. And that was the only reason I actually joined the bandwagon.
Oh
Because I
well.
think everything else was manageable with Wi-Fi because when you are checking emails, either I was at the
Hmm.
university or at home, so the internet was there. But maps was a thing that I desperately needed because everything is well planned and mapped, and that's how you do it. But I think there is one suite by Nokia when they were the primary mobile manufacturers was called Here Suite. So here maps, here navigation, here transit. I think those apps were beautifully designed. They were ahead of their time. and they were with AR, and they can just guide you to a big city. If you are in London, if you want to go anywhere, you can just switch on the AR engine in the phone. The Lumia series,
Nice.
but it specifically had those, and it was amazing experience. Once they
Oh.
updated it to Microsoft, I think they did not sell the here division, and I think that was
Mhm.
one of the reasons that I was using Lumia in the middle of the midway, and then I decided to go back to iPhone, and now I'm at the Android for one reason or the other. Okay, you go out person or a stay in person?
I'm a go out person. I have become more of a stay in person now that I live in a house with a garden, so I spend a lot of time out but inside. But I love going out, hanging out around the city and like visiting new tiny corners.
And your favorite comfort food recipe, something that you make all the time that
Oh, comfort food. I don't know if it's food like Spanish omelette, like tortilla española. I love that. Not that I make it all the time. What do I make all the time? I make a lot of salads. I love salads. They are very quick as well. Like you just mix things and they are
just put
tasty.
everything together. Okay,
Mhm.
with the long journeys, you prefer aisle or window seat?
Window seat. I really like the views when you are like,
Always.
landing and yeah.
Okay. And your favorite holiday destination?
Japan. Japan. When we were
Japan.
talking about, yes, I loved. I was there once. I loved it, and I can't wait to go back. And when you were talking about, well, when we were talking about like Google Maps and all of that, it was like, yes, like click on Japan, go there, have sushi. Yeah,
So
Japan
Japan
is
is
amazing.
always one of the unique places on earth, I believe. They are
Mhm.
miles ahead in terms of creativity, the way
Yeah.
the UX is designed. And I think East Asia, especially Japan or South Korea, they are some places to be explored, to be looked into the deep culture
Mhm.
which they have. And I believe the eastern you go, the culture even deepens every single time. I mean, I'm not saying that it is not in the West, but there are different things. I mean,
Yeah.
being an Indian, there are I can see the close ties to Indian culture towards the eastern side, and about the discovery of self, about the actualization comes from the
Yeah.
West, because I think Eastern society, again, it's my personal opinion, not of the
Mhm.
broadcasters, podcasters, or the sponsors, is this that so the more you go into the East, the way society transforms is it becomes more on what others are thinking. So it is about
Mhm.
more on the way that you are working with the society rather than
Yeah.
as an individual. So you have to stay in the norms. We have seen all the Korean dramas where they all talk about is just to get married, have kids, have job. There
Yeah.
is different society classifications for the rich and the poor. And I mean, Japan is still coming out of the shell where in the office, I mean, a lot of people say, a lot of designers, even I was talking to somebody who said that initially when I joined the office in the boardroom full of men, I was expected to make tea because I was the only woman present in that meeting. That sort of a thing is just culturally inherent, and
Yeah.
things are evolving worldwide. And that is how I see that, from the social collaborative ness to the individualisticness of the West. So
Yeah.
it's a journey, and understanding each culture with the uniqueness, something which is good, something which is bad. I mean, in the West, I believe a lot of people have this problem of isolation, of loneliness,
Mhm.
where it is really hard for them to talk to even their neighbors. And this is where the East and the West differ. In Asia, everybody wants to talk to everybody. That
That's very nice.
so yeah, it gets difficult after a point that
Yeah.
always there is one neighbor who's coming to ask you, where do you, and more importantly, how much do you earn? And
Oh
you
well.
it's just like, come on, man, you can't ask me that.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you were asking about the cultural differences earlier, something that I forgot to mention is the bragging. So in Spain, or I mean, what I'm used to is that you don't brag about yourself. Like other people talk well about you and they recommend you. So you're a good professional because other people say that you are good. Whereas in North America, I feel that people are like they don't have any problem with bragging about themselves. Like, hey, I am great. I'm amazing. I do super cool things. And that changed for me. Like when I was looking for my first job here, it was like, no, I cannot say that. Like that other people have to say that. So I am that. That's yeah. That was a
My
big step.
Silicon Valley experience goes like this. If you are in a meeting with three people, there is a guarantee that you are going to hear six companies where they have worked in the past.
Oh, wow.
So somebody would mention like, "Oh, I work for Nintendo," and the other person would say, "Oh yeah, well, while I was at the Xbox, Bill walked in one day, and guess what he did? He just stood there and then walked again, and I was like there, and I could have been fired because I was like making a joke." I said, "Yeah, you saw Bill Gates once in the office at like 200-meter distance." Bill walked in.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
that's how the cases are, and then it becomes a competition. Everybody would like to just say one brand or the other that they work for, but this is self promotion and the way things actually go.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much the difference there is. I believe it will be somewhat going into the gossip mode about the cultural zone, but I think it is important to understand when people are coming in and when you are building a team, when you're trying to hire people, you need to
Yeah.
actually find people who are a cultural fit to the rest of the people that you have. So it
100%.
always becomes a collaborative environment rather than just cultural shock that you already are hiring somebody who comes from a very different ethnic background or cultural background. Ethnicity is, again, it's very subjective to the place where the cultural background is considered. So there could be a second or third generation Indian walking into office, like Kamala Harris, and then she is a perfect fit for the job. Some people may argue, some people won't. Then Rishi Sunak is there heading UK. But then once Rishi Sunak's mother-in-law, she is the wife of one of the biggest IT companies founder, Mr. Narayan Murthy. Sudha Murthy, she is also was a developer once, but she's very culturally, when you look at her, she wears still traditional saris and she's very old. She's also retired now. So she does travel in her very traditional Indian attire. So she told once in an interview that she went to the immigrations at London Heathrow and they asked her that, where are you going to stay in London while you're going to be here? And she said 10 Downing Street. And the guy couldn't believe it. Are you kidding me?
Of course. Oh,
She's,
wow.
no, I am Rishi Sunak's mother-in-law. But joke aside, I think when you are hiring somebody for a position, I mean, there's always going to be Indian British people who are going to be different. There are people who are Indian Americans who are very different because culturally they don't see eye to eye at all. Because the same difference is with it doesn't matter that which ethnicity you are coming from, but you have to rely on the cultural fit of the rest of the organization, that whether they do understand these subtleties in which the organization functions, or there could be a reason of conflict that some people, in friends group you have certain kind of a humor going on, but then in the office circle there is a second level of humor that you have to moderate yourself and not say things which might hurt, or some people might get offended. So how do you manage that as a design leader? How do you recommend to keep it diverse yet inclusive and functionable?
Yeah, that's really interesting. So when I was putting together my team, actually, that was very important for me to have a diverse team, but also to be able to add a more diverse voice to the rest of the organization. I work in the crypto space right now, so the crypto space is not well known for being diverse. So yeah, when I was looking for new people, like we wanted to bring crypto to everyone. So you cannot bring crypto to everyone by having the same person just duplicated and like having multiple ones of them, right? So in my team, for me, it was very important that there were a lot of women because there aren't that many in the sector. So we can offer a different point of view also, I think, than what other people may add. And diversity comes in a lot of ways. So I was trying to have a team that was complementing each other, but also it was super important what you were saying before, that the team like add different things but don't break the group. So one way that I was dealing with that, well, myself and the rest of the company as well, because we had a somewhat common hiring process, was to, when we were interviewing someone, we had a lot of people from the rest of the team having a coffee chat with them at some point. So when we know that that person is good. We have a last interview with a group of people so they can know what company they are getting into, and the team can also see how they will feel about working with that person. So that for me was really important because you want the skills, you want the different point of view, but you also don't want to break what you have, right? So you have to be really careful with who you add to the team. I'd rather take forever to hire and not to have to fire later on. So it was very important for me to bring the right people that were like bringing something different to the team, but also not breaking what we have.
So, Sylvia, I think this is a very important point that you just mentioned, because a lot of time hiring practices do not include the team. And I think that is where the breakpoints are reached quite frequently. So I think it's a great idea that if initial rounds are cleared up, I think is one meeting with the team or a casual conversation to get the consensus that, yes, we are going to get on with this person because we really like the conversation that we had in a casual way of interaction. I think this gives a clear insights into whether if you have missed, somebody might have figured out a red flag or two that might result in change of decision. Because earlier on, whenever somebody just walks in for the first day, the couple of people would immediately identify to whether they want to get on with this person or not. And I think it's a great advice to have. Another thing is, you talked about crypto, but there, I think as you said, that it's for everyone, but not for everyone. I mean, it's understandably true. So while I think one of the primary demographic that you have is either millennials or Gen Z, but sometimes when you are having the conversation, you might run into people, because it's a deep market, is that you get to interact with people who have a mile wide knowledge but inch deep. They can talk about multiple business theories and ideas, but when you go into the depth, they just cannot get on with the information about what they want to do with it, or what does the future hold. So how do you decide the future of a startup where you're all working so passionately with, but the user base that you're trying to target has such a short attention span, or may not understand the gravity of the situation fully?
Well, we have done a lot of work into that, where we were trying to make things. So okay, when I joined the company, actually it was a very interesting moment, because we had our two types of clients were people that were super into crypto. They knew everything, and they didn't want you to over explain things to them, because like, are you calling me stupid or what? Like, I know everything about this. And then we had the new people coming into the market, or into the ecosystem, that knew nothing about it. They thought that it was something that was interesting for them because of their certain countries are more open to hold crypto, so maybe it was more of a, okay, I think that there is an opportunity here that I cannot have with fiat or like other currencies, so let's try this. But those people didn't necessarily know that much about crypto itself, so we had to be super careful with explaining things deeply enough without feeling too over explanatory for certain people. So that was like content, and the language was very important there. Like, how do you tell things to people in a like plain language, plain English, that doesn't go too deep, but also is not too legal, because we have to be careful with the regulations, but you cannot talk in a very legal way, because why good users care about that at all. So it was a very, or it is a very like hard balance. Where do you like, how do you position things, and what
I do
goes
understand.
out
I
in
think
the...
one of the things that is crux of the user testing sessions, or any session that you are running or doing a research, is that make sure that the users do not feel stupid, that they are not being judged of anything what they are saying. And also in the designing, that some complexity has to be there. Do not think the users are idiots, as said by, I think Don Norman said that, the second part. And I think that is the balance. It's everybody thinks that they can actually do the research, but actually being in the proper forefront, where you have to deal with a person that may or may not have any idea about what you're talking about, and you might run into a difficult situation or a corner. And sometimes people do ask questions which is not like they don't think about it, or they don't have brains about it, but it's just that they are not aware about the entire context of things, because they come from a very different socio-economic, cultural, educational, technical background that you cannot relate to. And that empathy part has to be built up, that
Yeah.
you manage the expectations while you're doing the research.
Yeah, that's super important.
So, talking about different backgrounds and diversities, I believe you have a podcast in Spanish
Yes.
language, and it is called Entre Diseñoras. Entre Diseñoras.
Entre Diseñoras. Yes. That's it.
Entre Diseñoras. It means it's a made up word. The second one, Diseñoras, is designers and senoras combined together. And
Yeah.
Entre Diseñoras means women in design. And it's a Spanish language podcast where women of all the, who speak Spanish and are from creative backgrounds in the industry, we just meet together and talk more about it. It is just a Spanish version of the Banter podcast, I believe.
Yes, so I'm doing that with a friend of mine, Diana, and yeah, we get together and we interview. Each episode is one new friend of us, and yeah, we bring people that don't usually, like most of them don't usually speak that much out there. So we know that there are so many people doing great work, and we are not hearing from all of them. We always hear from the same people. So yeah, we are just bringing these voices to our podcast and having a nice time together, similar to what we're doing here right now.
So wait, so can you just point out one or two similarities or key differences between what we did right now and then what you do there?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, we have a casual conversation, and I think that the most, to me, the most impactful, or the part that I enjoy the most and that the people listen to the podcast tell me that they like the most, is when we have like some banter around the things that we do. So we have things somewhat structured, but when it goes a bit out of structure, that's actually when things work better. And I think that, like, I'm noticing it here right now as well. So when, yeah, there are some things that were not uh, written down, and suddenly you start like going towards that, or yeah, I think that that's really great.
Are there any common themes that occur with your podcast? I mean, there could be whenever you do an episode and you think like
Mhm.
that, okay, every single time we have the conversation, it always comes to this topic, and this is where we are taking this.
So we actually have, for each episode, at the end of each episode, we have a couple of questions that we ask everyone.
Mhm.
And one of them is, if you were not a designer, what would you rather be? And it's really nice. It's, in a way, like, it depends on what design is for us, right? Because if we go to the broader view, like, everyone talks about being a designer in a different way. And some of them are like, no, I totally love what I do every day, and that's it. And yeah, we have had one person that wants to take care of her garden instead of, well, I mean, if she wouldn't be a designer, she would be a gardener, which I love, because I would love to do that as well. And yeah.
I am thinking about what I would have been doing. So I always wanted to be a director because Bollywood plays a big role in our life. So Bollywood, cricket, and food, that is
That's really
India.
cool.
Festival, yes, but that again, it's about celebrating one thing or the other. So I always wanted to become a movie director. I always thought that I don't have the physique or looks to be an actor. So, but then if I think about it, it's more went into the lines of content creation, because in the
Yeah.
90s I had no idea what I could have done. And I can tell you, if not for being a designer, I would become a content creator for some channel or the other, or must have had mine or something.
Yeah.
But then again, creatively, I think you have this podcast. It is part of the content creation. And also I've written a book on UX called
Ooh.
UX Decoded. So yeah, so I think creatively, I think I'm whatever I would be doing, I would must been working with some creative industry or the other. I'm not a good painter or an artist, but I think something comes out of my mind.
Yeah. That's very
All
nice.
right. So, with the journey that you have taken, 16 years and counting, and with all sort of hurdles that you must have faced, because it's not easy to move your entire life from one city to another is one thing. Moving from one country and the continent is another. With language barriers, the people barriers, and then you have to find the proper jobs where you can thrive and grow in your career. Everything, every challenge that follows. So, what would be your advice to young professionals in the industry who are just starting out their careers, maybe somewhere in India, somewhere in Asia, somewhere in Central Europe or Spain or, any place they are, what would be your advice that what they should be doing right now for a brighter future ahead?
I'm gonna say something that one of my professors told me, that is, whatever you do, travel, go out, visit new places, get to know other things there, and learn about people. Which is, at the end of the day, what we do is do, like, understand people a bit better each day and create products for them. So go out and yeah, learn about what people do and why they do it, and yeah, try to know more about what's out there. Also, something that I have been noticing lately is that I feel that there is like a big, I don't know if democratization, but there are much more people joining a design space than there were a few years ago. And I think that many people are, because there is a lot of noise around that, so they are focusing around strategy and doing things and having like the louder voice and whatnot. But if you are a designer, though, like, there are two things there. One is you have to care about people and you have to understand what people do, but also you cannot forget about the craft. And I feel that I have seen a lot of portfolios lately, and I think that, yeah, the main, if you are a designer, you need to know how to design, and then let's build on top of that, right? So let's care a bit more about the craft and basics of what we do, and then we can build on top of that and learn from other things.
So you are in some sort of a show business. We are all designers. So it doesn't matter that what you are actually producing and showing out. Before I get to the last part of it, there is one very interesting thing that I actually saw on your profile, that you do mentoring with one platform. Would you like to talk more about your mentoring
Yeah,
side of things?
sure. Yeah, I have been mentoring unofficially and more officially for a while, and I know that you do it too. And the reason why I think it's important is because when I was starting my career, there were not that many people out there that I could reach out to. And right now, like, having all these platforms and all these people open to conversations, that's the way you learn as well, like understanding what other people have been doing. And I really like sharing my experience with others and learning from them as well, because it has been like, that's also a way for me to understand, like, the new people that come into the field, like, what are they doing, what they care about, what are they're learning. So for me, it's also a way of getting up to date in a way. But yeah, I really like yeah, talking to people and helping where I
We
can.
always learn a lot on those sessions. I do mentoring with ADP List, and I'm closing on to 2000 hours of mentoring. And I think it gives a very different kind of satisfaction when you do mentoring. And I think I would recommend that anybody who is listening, if you are a senior person, make sure that you are part of that club. ADP List is one of the amazing platforms that we have to explore our art and talk more. And it's not just because you want to share. There are times when even I get lost and I have to speak with somebody who is senior enough to actually guide me that what to do next. And I actually become a mentee on that platform itself. So one thing that I was talking to this guy who was showing me his case study. And the problem was while we were looking at it, the way that he was explaining, he said that whenever I present this, I always get rejected. And my answer was that because it's a case study that you prepared for the project that you did for the company. It is not case study that you solved a problem. It is how your organization went
Yeah,
about it. You are saying that there was a business case and you're trying to explain the process, but it's a case study that you should present that a problem which is you are solving. It's about you that you are selling. It's not the company services that you are actually
yeah,
trying to sell here. So make sure that there are two different people that you're talking to, because all the material that you have is for the clients. But when you are sitting in the interview, when you are showing the portfolio, again, it is not for the clients, but somebody who
yeah,
has more experience than you, and they are hiring for the interview. They are there to hire a person who can be next them. So you
yeah.
have to prepare and think about a very different kind of user that you are targeting while going for the jobs. And I think that is something which, while I was explaining, I thought that that is a very insightful information personally as well. So, uh, yeah, so I think that worked out greater way.
Yeah, but
So
that's really, yeah. I think that that's a failure of us as designers many times. Like, we are trying to apply for roles with what we have done in the past, and it's like, no, that company doesn't want to know what you have done in the past. They want to know what you are able to do there, which is like, what's the next step? Like, who are you now? Not what you have done, but over that, like, how can you build on top of what you did? And yeah, we have to get better at that. Actually.
And it is always going to be the last design, your best design. And the portfolios have designs that you did like 10 years ago. And it has sensibilities of that day and time. And now you cannot just actually run with it. And I think with the senior positions, as you grow, you need to find more avenues to explain. I don't think
Mhm.
a senior UX designers do have case studies or portfolios because it's redundant. And then the questions about what tool you're using is also redundant because tools come and go every
Yeah.
3 years. You are working in a new tool. So again, there is some sort of agnostic approach to the loyalties about Sketch or Figma or Photoshop or Illustrator or XD has to be ingrained into while you are actually honing your skills to understand more about the logic part of it rather than so the pen and paper are not important. The story is important that you have to write.
Yep.
So, with that, Sylvia, I had a blast talking to you and having this
Mhm.
conversation. Thank you very much for joining our podcast today.
Thank you for inviting me.
And it was an absolute pleasure of mine to get acquainted and talk this much. And ladies and gentlemen, whoever is listening to this podcast, do stay tuned for another episode pretty soon. And thank you for joining. And you all have a wonderful day ahead. Goodbye. Take care.